Okay, here we are on this day of August the 22nd, 2016, round two with Trey and Taylor. We had a conversation last week and we talked about several things regarding the existence of God, and Taylor had requested that we have another discussion. There's some things that he wanted to continue talking about and felt like some things were not resolved, and so I was happy to oblige him. I'd forgotten about the meeting until about a half hour ago and asked if we could do it an hour earlier than we did last time, and he was happy to do that. So thanks, Taylor, for accommodating him. And I'm sorry I forgot about it.
But, not a problem at all.
Okay, so anyway, we can go ahead and pick up where we left off. I think I looked over the thing that you said, and one of the things that you said was you felt like the apologetic or defense that I gave for the existence of God really didn't have any explanatory power in it. It was basically too ambiguous to really give any substantial justification for my view. Would that be accurate to what you were thinking?
Yeah, I think that was also in line with, there's a couple of points in our conversation where you said, well, that's not what I'm saying about God at all. So, that kind of comes into, I should have stopped there and said, well, what is your view of the cosmology? How do things fit together? Instead of dancing around or avoiding what it is that you actually believe.
Okay, so
and on my part, I mean, there's a couple times where I said something related to Christianity or the Christian God as comparisons to other religions when we were talking about the neighbor comparisons.
Uh-huh.
And there's a couple times where I would say something and you would say, well, I'm not saying that at all. And at that point, if I was a little more experienced in this kind of forum, I probably should have stopped and said, well,
what do you believe?
Let's stop back and go to what you mean. So, is there a high-level Reader's Digest version of what you think the cosmology looks like?
Well, I'm not sure. I guess I'm not sure. You said it doesn't have any explanatory power. I thought I made it clear that all I'm saying is that making a case for a creator is a self-existent creator that creates all contingency. I don't understand how that's too ambiguous. That's pretty cogent, if you ask me.
Well, it doesn't tie in any demonstrable way to Christianity or any other religion.
I never said it did, so what?
Okay.
Do you see the point then?
No.
Okay, why not? That's the point. Why not?
Because we don't have full knowledge.
We will never have full knowledge of anything. Do you agree with that?
Probably so, yes.
Okay, so then do you know anything about anything?
Yeah, we're not going to play that game.
Well, what do you mean? I'm just asking you to be consistent.
I'm just saying is that we talked about if the secularist view were accurate, we both agree that our approach to gaining more knowledge has a definite, huge in the future time commitment, right? We're not getting out of this solar system probably in your and I lifetime in terms of manned space flight. We're probably not approaching other planets. We're probably not approaching other galaxies for, probably thousands of years, unless we, have some kind of major technology breakthrough. But the point of it being is that on a sliding scale of how much knowledge can we have and how much knowledge do we have now, there's not a secular point where we can just say, well, hey, I can give you everything with a nice bow on top, because we both agree that what we need to know and what we need to learn and what we need to approach, from my point of view, still has a very big definite future component to it.
Okay, but all I'm asking is, will you concede? You just said that since we don't know everything, we can't know anything. Now, that's not true, right?
I said that I don't want to be involved in the word games of, if I don't know anything, I can't know anything, and playing the Sci-10 type apologetic discussion, if that's where you're going with it.
No, I'm not. I'm just, you made a statement. You said,
okay.
You said that I don't have explanatory power, and I said, and
yes.
You were telling me that I don't have all the answers, therefore I don't have any answers. And I'm saying, do you have any answers?
Okay, so the point of it is that there are multiple theistic answers that are offered. And by definition, every theistic answer that's offered says men are just mortal, men cannot know. Right?
Every theistic answer says that men cannot know?
Say that we can't test, we can't validate.
Well, sure we can. My whole argument here has been absolutely a scientific argument, and it's not based on probability. It's an absolute certainty. This is what my whole thing has been. It's not something that we need to know in the future. It's not something it's right now. Here we are. If you are contingent and you are asking a question about existence, then you know for certain that God exists. It's an analytic necessity. If you give the law of non-contradiction and if you can give enough sense perception that you as an inquirer are asking a question. That's all you need. And it's absolute. It's not.
I don't think so.
Okay, tell me why.
Because we're talking about containers and we don't know what lies outside the container.
We cannot deal with what we don't understand.
Exactly.
All we can deal with what we have right now. Do you exist?
Yes, I do.
Are you self-existent?
No.
Then God exists. That's the whole point. It's real simple.
Okay, so even if I grant you that, for point of discussion, it still is very highly in the we don't know range, right?
No.
Why not?
No, it's absolutely unavoidable analytic truth. It's like 2 + 2 is 4. Do you agree that 2 + 2 is 4?
If we say that there is something outside the universe that the universe is a part of, which we only suspect.
I didn't say outside. And when I say outside, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I do make a distinction in my terminology between universe and cosmos.
Okay.
Okay. Universe being we believe because of the rate of expansion that the universe had a beginning and that the universe will have an end. And if the universe is contained in something outside the visible universe, that would be a cosmos.
Okay.
Which does include, the possibility of multiverse theory. And again, those are all speculations. They're frameworks talking for what could this look like outside of something. So when I say a container for the universe, I'm just saying is that if we agree with the idea that the universe, as we know it, started, is expanding, and will have a definite end, the container for the universe, right, is what?
Okay.
So if it's a cosmos and there's a series of universes that are forming and not forming, right, then we know that the universe is contingent, but we don't know on what.
Okay.
And we can't speak to how it forms or why it forms, and we may never be able to. I mean, that could be part of the black box that we just can't see and outside of, can't investigate, can't prove, right? So we have scientific models and guesstimates on what that can be like, and we have theistic models and guesses to what that can be like. And at some point, what we're arguing about is what's outside the container, right?
Okay, so let's clarify here. So I'm glad to have that terminology distinction where you're saying that the universe is basically all contingency, and the cosmos is all there is, right?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's helpful because that helps me to tailor my terminology in that way as well. Because usually when I talk about the universe, I always have to make that distinction. I say when you say the universe, you talking about all that is contingent, or you're talking about all it is. So when I say universe, generally what I'm speaking is all it is. And when I speak of God, I'm not speaking of God as outside, as if some spatial outside of us, because God is non-corporeal. In fact, that which is self-existent cannot be corporeal. Otherwise, it would be limited by corporeality, and it could not be self-existent. It would be contingent by definition. So to speak of saying God is in Nebraska or with the stars is really making a category error. That's like saying, what does the number 9 smell like? Because he is not corporeal. He's not. So when I say outside, it's a relational statement or an ontological statement speaking about the distinction between that which is self-existent and that which is contingent. So it's not to try to place it spatially or locationally is a category error.
Well, if the cosmos is everything, and we are happy to use that definition, right?
Okay.
What's the functional difference between defining an eternal cosmos and an eternal something more than the cosmos?
Okay, yeah. Well, that's a good point. All right, well, and I think we may have touched on this before, that what you're doing, if you're going to say that the cosmos is both contingent and self-existent in the same ontology, you make another category, or you violate the law of identity. Something cannot be...
Without us looking at the cosmos, right?
I'm sorry?
Without us looking at the cosmos, where do we get to say that it's contingent or not?
No, because so the scientific method is based upon empiricism and deduction. In other words, you experience things and you categorize them by deducing and put them in categories. So whatever model you come up with science, that's why I say my model is a scientific one. It's not a theistic one, it's a scientific one, because you've got to start with rational coherence with whatever you do with your sensory data. And so the rational argument for it is that contingency cannot create itself before it exists. So my argument is a rational, scientific one, that is based upon the data. So it's not, and I forgot where I was going with that. You made some comment about, and so we've got to have a distinction. We don't have to experience this anywhere else. All we have to do is experience the effect itself. And because we know that there's an effect, we know that there's a cause, and we know that the cause is not the same as the effect. It is different in nature, because otherwise you can't have an eternal regression of effects without causes, that's nonsense. So we don't have to look anywhere. We know all I have to do is see myself, and I know that it exists.
I think that really what we get to at that point is a subject preference for a definition and a logic puzzle that says, well, hey, if I get you to accept this logic puzzle, then I can force my conclusion into the argument by trying to get you to accept a definition. And I really am, skeptical of that mode of investigation.
Well, that mode of investigation is exactly what you applied in order to give me that argument.
But the point of it is, though, is that, we make category mistakes all the time in science.
Yes.
And we label things and we mislabel things. And the scientific nature of the argument is not in the fact that we're categorizing, not in the fact that we're defining, not in the fact that we're positing, but in the fact that we're testing and moving closer to a truth, right?
Yes, and employing all those factors.
Okay. So if we make a category mistake on something...
How would you know?
Well, exactly. Is that usually what ends up happening is we make a category mistake. We run along thinking that we're doing the right thing. And then somebody thinks outside the box and says, well, look over here. Or somebody digs deeper and finds a better answer. And right. There's methods of investigation, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
tell me the category here.
So to call an argument scientific, I think also implies the ability to test your categorizations and be able to validate and move it forward. Exactly. And with what you're making, I think you get to a deistic claim, but I don't think you get to a theistic claim.
Okay, so you concede the argument.
No. Because I'm happy with I don't know.
But you're not giving me anything. You're not rebutting my argument. It's just saying I don't like it. It's emotionally unappealing to me.
No, what I'm saying is that, and it's honestly not an emotional unappealing thing. It's
okay. What's the reason then?
I don't know is a honest point. It's not a cop-out because we both agreed that from a secular worldview, if there were no gods at all, then our answer could not be anything other than I don't know today, right?
That's not an answer.
No, hold on.
That's a concession is what that is.
No, hold on. If you step outside the conclusion that you're looking for, right, and you say there are no gods, that there is a contingent purpose in the cosmos outside of your universe, all your answers are solved out there, we just can't see it, right? There's a third option that you don't know and I don't know. That is the truth.
But that's not really a valid argument because I just told you if you give sense perception and if you give logic, you cannot avoid the answer. And so saying I don't know is saying I don't have a rebuttal and I am emotionally opposed to your answer.
No, what it's saying is that if there is a third category, right, that neither one of us are approaching.
What is that category? Don't say I don't know because that's not an answer.
It is an answer, Terry. So,
you really hate God, don't you?
No, I don't believe in God, so how could I hate God?
Well, why wouldn't you just concede the argument then?
Because I think that there's a category mistake that's in there because we can't test between multiple claims, as I started to say, before, is that at some point, right, I don't know is a valid answer because for a secularist that does not believe that there is a God, we do believe that the answers could be out there. And if there is a
as long as it's not a theistic one.
No, and I can tell you reasons why I would accept a theistic answer too. But if we were to talk about what's outside of our purview, right? I can't tell you what the gravity feels like on Mars, can I?
We're talking about right here, right now. We're not talking about anything outside of our
That's a
experience.
false dichotomy. That's saying, hey, what I have to do is I have to wrap up everything today, right now, and give Trey the complete answer to everything, even though we both agree that we don't have
I
true
didn't say a
knowledge.
complete answer. I said an answer to existence, which is necessarily by you're granting me the two presuppositions or the two foundations you lost, but then you don't like it, and so you say, "Well, I don't know," but I'm not going to accept your view. That's not an answer, my friend.
I don't think yours is either, and that's kind of why we're discussing, right?
Okay, tell me how it's invalid.
Okay. So, again, from the standpoint of the secularist, there is a time factor involved in us exploring and learning things. There is a distance factor, and we already talked about the analogy between what's in my sandbox and what's in the mountain over the hill, right?
Which is what we're talking about.
It is absolutely what we're talking
about. We're talking about our sandbox right now, this one that we're sitting in right now.
Right. So if the knowledge that I have, if you're comparing what's on the sandbox to what's on the mountain, right? Mm-hmm. The scale of the universe to the scale of where we are at and the scale of what we know, that's a huge, huge, huge difference, right?
I cannot speak to that which I don't know. You're begging the question. You're using special pleading. You're saying basically, we don't know. There could be some other answer, some other world we don't know. You can't do that. That's cheating.
It's not cheating.
You must only deal with what you can understand. You can't.
So what you're saying is the only thing I can do is I can make up an answer.
No, you can make an answer. No, you can only make an answer about that which you have an understanding of. You can't try to, and then you can't wiggle out of it and say, well, who knows? Could be, they said that have you ever heard of that story? They say that there are green men that eat cheese sandwiches on the backside of the moon, but you can't see them because they hide from cameras every time you go and try to take pictures of them. It's kind of like the Ghostbusters of today. They always say, oh, there's ghosts out there, but you can't see them because they don't like cameras. That's the answer you're giving me.
Right?
Yes, you're making that argument right now.
No, I'm not.
You're making an argument from ignorance, and it's special pleading.
There's no special pleading involved in saying that
I'm wrong because there might be another answer that you don't know about.
No. What I'm saying is that you're claiming that there's a scientific method to what you're talking about, but what you cannot do is tie your deistic model, and that's why I say it's a model, it's an abstraction. Okay, this is, hey, I've got this logical induction that says, I think that things have to be created, right? So I want to now tie that premise to multiple things that are claimed by multiple groups of people and believed and make a difference in multiple people's lives, right? Because I'm talking from the good neighbor analogy, right?
That has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
It has everything to do with what
All I'm talking about is you, Taylor, who is Walston, who is thinking about the issue of existence. I don't even need to be real. Nothing else needs to be real. You can be a solipsist, and you can think about these things, and then you have to come to the conclusion that you're not self-existent, and that there must be a self-existent being that gives you your ontology.
And when you use terms like gives, you're presupposing the answer that you want.
How so?
Because you've not demonstrated, first of all, that the answer you want is, in fact, the correct answer, and given us a way that we can validate between things in anything but a subjective manner when we talk about particular theistic claims.
How else are we supposed to understand anything without being subjects? We're the ones asking the question, or you're the one.
And what I asked you was how, when I'm talking to multiple neighbors that are each asking me to be open-minded and each asking me to be open-minded investigators, how do we determine where the truth is when every one of them follows a path that is consistent with things have been made up? They're all untestifiable. They're all unfalsifiable.
If somebody gives you something and you cannot test it or verify it, then why would you believe it?
I guess it depends on the scale of what they're asking you to believe, right?
Well, no. I mean, if somebody tells me something and they say, believe me just because I say so, why would you believe that?
I wouldn't.
Okay. I'm not asking you to do that. I've never asked you to do that.
What I'm saying is, what's the method that I, as a neutral party, wanting to investigate multiple theistic claims, can use other than subjective preference and bias, because that's the only differentiation I can see.
Trey Jadlow's argument, if you will grant me the law of non-contradiction and basic reliability of sense perception, you have already figured it out, and then you change the subject. I think it's because you're so used to talking to people who are fideistic, and I'm not, and it kind of blows your fuse. You're thinking, what do I do with this guy? I don't know. I mean,
no, I'm just saying is that if I grant you that, right, then I have to grant each of my neighbors the same thing.
Grant your neighbors what?
That
they're rationally giving you an argument for the existence of God?
That same argument can contain their theistic argument for God as well.
Yeah. So do you concede the argument? We all have the same argument, and you haven't rebutted it. Why won't you accept it?
You're not understanding the distinction that I'm trying to make. Okay.
Well, you're saying they all have extras on top of that are different. Again,
but the distinction is if I've got multiple claims of something,
right.
So I hate doing this, but to me, the analogies that we're using as far as the types of things to trust people on for theistic claims rely on some of the same principles that make a con work. You know, they have emotional appeal. They try to invest you in the end goal of something, and there's a little bit of marketing of the idea to where you're getting to. And I don't mean it by anybody pushing a theistic argument is doing it with a malicious intent.
Right.
Okay. But the point being is that there are multiple cons that we know about that have names, that have patterns and formulas, and people learn them and people follow them and people fall into them. So when we're talking about multiple theistic claims about what Godhead is, if there's an afterlife, the requirements for the afterlife, how you get there, why you get there, okay? If every one of those is absolutely 100% consistent with men came up with an idea, took it their way, and using that secular model that I showed you, have come to many, many different conclusions, many different arguments about what it means, how it means, and they've just completely fragmented the ideas and gone everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. That's entirely possible without any one of them capturing a absolute truth underneath it.
That's right. But you're talking about other people that are not even in this conversation.
I think that they're relevant.
That argument. I've given you a rational argument.
And what I'm asking you, right, is not, can I come up with a model that I feel personally satisfying with one God that says, okay, one God could do this, so I'm happy with the answer I've got. I'm saying, let's take the step past that and go to a specific series of things that people are saying.
I need you to concede the argument at base because you haven't rebutted it and you're wanting to go somewhere else. And I'm saying, I'm not going to let you go. Do you concede the argument?
Only for the purpose of furthering discussion.
Okay, great. That's fine. Okay. Now let's move on.
Okay. Which is entirely where we have to be in order to talk about.
No, we have to start with existence. That's where it starts. And you don't have an answer. You don't have a rebuttal, and you want to move on, but that's fine as long as
hold on. You talk about why people don't want to continue to come back and debate you, and I think this point right here is you're wanting to stick to a script and not understanding the difference of perspective, right? So the perspective from the secularist is there's not a single answer that we have discovered that we can address and that we can talk about because there's so much more to learn, so much more to explore.
And I just explained to you that you are special pleading and you haven't read an argument.
It's not special pleading. If there are no gods, what other way would there be of finding things out? If there weren't. So don't just laugh here, but if there were no gods at all, what other avenue would we have other than going out there and exploring the boundaries and seeing if we can get outside our container?
If there were no gods, then we would not have any problem at the start saying that somehow something can create itself before it exists. It's really simple.
I don't agree.
I know. Tell me why.
Because there's a level of philosophy that is grounded in conceptualizing things that does not have to have any ties to reality for us to explore and play with the concepts, right?
Does this conversation correspond to reality? Because remember, sense perception.
Sure, because we're validating and verifying and reflecting each other and responding to each other, right?
Okay, so it's not what you're talking about then, right?
No, what I'm saying is that merely saying I have an answer and you don't have an answer to everything doesn't mean that I have the right answer. Is that valid?
No, that's how logic works. That's how debate works. You make an assertion, you give your evidence, and the other guy comes back and says, here's where you're wrong, here's my perspective that's wrong. You haven't done that.
Well, honestly,
I don't like it.
Honestly, I think what we miss out on debate in American culture today is that we're looking at the win instead of we're looking at understanding.
I get that same, every time somebody loses, they always say that. It's not about winning. And I'm saying, well, it's not.
No,
but I mean, it's
honestly, so for example, in our conversation last time, we brought up a point about Mormonism, and you talked about, well, I think Mormonism is wrong because they claim to, mature out straight to just like God, and, that can't be true, and that's a problem, right? So I learned something from our discussion.
Okay,
so I had another avenue, something I could go investigate, and to me, that's the spirit of debate.
I agree.
Okay, now, when you say, hey, I've got this framework, I can't show you God, I can't show you angels, I can't show you devils, I can't show you heaven, I can't show you hell, I can show you claims of these things, just like my other religious neighbors, right? But because I've philosophized that I've got this answer, you have to accept one of those. I think that kind of thinking process is bad, because if everybody was wrong, how would you know?
I mean, it's like we're going in circles over and over. You just don't like the answer, so you're just squirming, grasping for something.
No, my point of it is that without verification...
Have you ever met somebody that gave you an answer like this?
Sure.
Every day. Because it seems to be blindsiding you here, and you don't like it, but...
No, I think that you're really proud of your argument and not respecting the counterpoint.
I've never had a serious challenge, Taylor. Not once. Not once. Like I said, and they get all mad when I say this. Guys have PhDs, and they think they're really smart. And it's not. I'm not. This is a very simple. It's an argument that is very. And it's not my R.C. Sproul's where I got it from, and he got it from Aquinas, and he got it from Augustine. Really, Augustine talked about these things, but it's just. We have lost it. Our culture has become very technological, but not deep in thinking, unfortunately.
I think that we've become more recipient to validating and understand what it is that we're talking about, and we're less happy with hand-waving away arguments and stopping investigation at, well, I think I have an answer, so...
Aren't you hand-waving right now?
Not at all, and that's what I'm trying to get across to you, right?
You're totally hand-waving. You're saying, well, we don't know. It could be another universe out, something that we don't understand.
That's a nice, fun word game, and you get to play, hey, I beat up on the atheist because, he doesn't have a complete answer to everything.
Taylor, I'm interacting with you because I love you, okay? I am interested in your well-being.
Okay, and I'm saying be interested in the conversation and understand the point that I'm making is that from a secularist standpoint, I don't know is not a straitjacket and is not an admission of defeat.
It is indeed. It's totally. I mean, just totally.
How many livable planets are there in the universe?
It doesn't matter. Are they all contingent? Are they all changing?
It doesn't matter, because if they are all supporting life, and any of them are supporting conscious life, and any of them have any idea of divinity, do you think that any one of them would have come to the same conclusions about the divine that you do?
If they can think, if they're sentient creatures and they can think, 2 + 2 is 4.
Not would they get to a deistic mumbo jumbo, hey, there's just got to be one God. Would they know Yahweh?
They would, if they are thinking people, yes. Now, no, not Yahweh, not necessarily, no.
Why not?
Because Yahweh is special revelation. Right now, I'm dealing with this natural revelation. In other words, everybody knows there's a God. Everybody knows there's right and wrong. But that's not enough to save you. It's enough to damn you. But you can't be saved by just my argument that I'm giving right now. It's
And
just
I'm
that
saying that every term that you're using past the deistic argument, when you talk about save and you talk about damn and you talk about things like that, those are all things that you add to that abstraction.
well, it's
Right?
not abstraction. It's
It
a
is. It is.
reality that you
No,
can't refute.
it's an abstraction. Whether it's an eternal cosmos or an eternal non-tangible something out there that has a mind, even though we have no way of demonstrating any mechanism for anything that is non-tangible to have a mind or to interact with anything else, you're happy with that solution, right?
Well, because it's
That's
rationally
what
coherent.
I asked you what your cosmology is. You say, hey, we can't have a universe or a cosmos that's contingent or non-contingent. We have to have a non-contingent something. And I say, well, where does that not contingent something fit in? Okay.
And it's called at the beginning.
Well, at the beginning, when you're talking infinite and eternal means what?
Eternal means that that which is outside of us, because none of us are eternal. At
So
least from going back.
when you say at the beginning, then there's a beginning, and then we get back into
Well, you're saying there's a beginning too, right?
No, for the universe, I'm saying at the beginning, because I'm saying that there is a container that I don't think we can see outside of, even before we've done any amount of exploration of the container that we do know about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I don't know is a rational position.
Well, yeah, but it's not an answer. It's just an I don't know is a negation of knowing,
Yeah,
right?
but there's the people selling an answer, right? The people vested in an answer, right?
Uh-huh.
Are the ones that have the least tangible solutions that they can demonstrate.
Wait a minute. I gave you an argument here. You didn't answer it, and now you're saying it's intangible, and you can't even refute it.
Yeah. What I'm
Does it
saying
have
is
to
that
be physical?
you've given, it doesn't necessarily have to be physical, but you've given me no tangible way to distinguish between multiple claims, between the claims.
I have.
You
I have
haven't.
said there is a creator, and you don't refute it, and you
Okay.
don't rebut it, and you say, I don't know, you're wrong.
Well, I'm saying I don't know, not in the terms of you're wrong. I'm saying I don't know. I've got you and 4 other neighbors that are telling me different things that are using very similar
Are
arguments.
all those neighbors saying there's a creator?
They're all saying that there's a creator, but they're all
Okay.
saying different creators. And you acknowledged the other day that the God of
No. Mormonism
God,
is not a creator. Mormonism is polytheistic. It's irrational. It
no,
cannot
it's
be
not.
sustained.
And just in 5 minutes of Googling what they say about exaltation, you can see where they've got Old Testament grounding in what they believe in the
No, they
terminology that they're
don't.
using, and it becomes
No, they
metaphorical.
don't.
Sure.
Their God is, as man is, God once was. As God is, so man may become.
Yes.
It's
And there were
pure.
first and second century Christians that were believing things. If you look at exaltation in Mormonism, we see Paul talking about resurrection to a newer immortal form, right? We see John talking about things. We see Paul talking in Philippians. We see further Christian leaders in the 2nd century talking about God said we become what we are in order to make us what he is himself. We see if the word becoming man is so men may become gods. We have
Taylor,
a
you don't know what you're
non-Mormon.
talking about. Just
No.
Google.
What I'm saying is that when I take a look at that, right?
On Google.
What I see is some explanations for those particular terms saying things on the order of magistrates are considered to be godlike in their authority because they've been ordained by God. Christ was considered godlike because of the same quality of that the Mormons say that the transubstantiation of Christ is the exact same method that they're going to be transubstantiated into. So then we start getting into the cosmos question of
Taylor, your
where.
ignorance is the only stumbling block in this conversation.
I don't think so. I don't think so. What I'm saying is that when we start talking about what if and make believe, we can do what if and make believe all day long, right? We can talk about why Star Wars is better than Star Trek.
Yes. And why there's a universe out there that we don't understand. It might give us some answers. It might get me out of this argument that I don't have to look like I'm losing it.
No. I think that the only definition that you can give of losing the argument is refusing to accept that if there is a secularist answer that is correct, that the time component of I don't know is in the future.
Yeah, but the secularist argument at base at this moment right now is irrational. That's the problem. And so
And
they're trying to say, oh,
the
maybe
only
it'll
way,
get better in time.
the only way that you can say it's irrational is to have knowledge of the container.
Yes, and the container is contingent, right?
The only knowledge that you can have is knowledge of what's outside the container. So give me the objective method of doing that that's not a subjective
Is the
preference.
container contingent?
We say that the universe is contingent, but
Okay, so outside, whatever
that's
you want to say that is, there
hold
must
on,
be self-existence.
hold on. That's our best guess. There are models, once again, abstractions of the idea that talk about a continually expanding and contracting universe that maybe is eternal in its own right, and there's not an outside, so outside doesn't make sense. And that's where the whole universe from nothing type of argument, gets into the silliness of really the infinite regress is just at the point where we can't investigate. In every
Infinite
one of our
regress, yes, you can. The very infinite regress at the base is stupid. You cannot have something happening without something making it happen. If you want to have an infinite regress,
which is why I asked
causes,
what the cosmology of God is, right?
No. Oh
yes,
my
it
God.
is because now we need to start getting into what I consider to be the fun make believe land of where is God? Where does God sit in relation to all this? Where does heaven sit? Where are all these souls that are going to be redeemed and reconstructed?
It is irrelevant, utterly
not.
irrelevant.
It is not, because you don't get to divorce yourself from the entire
I'm
history.
not divorcing myself. I'm starting at the base and saying refute it or accept it.
And
I'm not going to do it.
okay, and honestly, if you want to talk about why do people not want to engage with you, I think that's it.
You're mean. You're arrogant.
Not at all. It's not that at all. It's because you ask us to grant you your argument for point of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or to refute it.
And if we had perfect knowledge, we could refute it, right? If I had a phone call to God and I could get God talking to both of us and we were both wrong, I could refute it, right? But the point of refute something that is an assertion, right, that you can't demonstrate except through logical induction and abstract logic puzzle games.
Well, it's
right?
Logical deduction. Induction is imperfect.
It's an induction, and we've already agreed that you can make category mistakes and that you're.
But you haven't pointed out the mistake.
I said you can, yes, and you can feel that you have the correct induction.
If you can't demonstrate it, you're special pleading.
No, because you can't demonstrate your container, right?
I have totally demonstrated mine.
No, you've asserted, you've created a logic puzzle.
I've proved.
You've created an abstraction, and you've said, this is the way I think that things must be, right? But when I would say, hey, if I did have another explanation, it would involve me, warping around the universe, gathering up a whole lot more information than we have, and coming back with, hey.
You don't need anymore. All you need is the Inquirer once again.
No, you don't.
All you need is the Inquirer.
Okay, so if we talk about the planet Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
There have been so many gods and ideas of gods posited on this planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I could warp
across, contradictory.
Yes, and if I could warp across the universe and land on a planet and establish communications with another sentient force, right, and find that they not only had one religion, they had one cogent religion, and it just happened to coincide with one of our religions, that would be really interesting now, wouldn't
it? Not really. I mean, it's irrelevant.
So?
No, it doesn't interest me in the least.
Okay, and why not?
Because I am asking an argument for us right here. I'm not asking about spec. You can make up stories till you're blue in the face, my friend.
But the problem of it is that from a micro scale, we have that on our planet. There is not a single religious offering that crosses continents, offered at the same time by disparate people that could not be in communication with each other. That could not
Christianity is not coherent?
I didn't say coherent. I said there's not a single one that has originated as God revealing itself to multiple cultures in multiple languages, multiple places at the same time, so that when they come together, they say, guess what? We got language differences. We got terminology
I don't
differences.
understand.
But we're
You're
talking about the
upset.
same thing.
You
No,
don't like the way that God did
no.
it, therefore it's not right. Is that somehow an argument?
Well, that's a fun theistic dodge. Okay, I don't like the way that God did it. Well,
That's what
what
you're saying.
we're saying we're not. I'm not talking to God. Okay,
You're telling me I don't like the way your
no,
religion works, therefore it's false.
no. What I'm saying is your religion is just like every other religion.
How so?
It's culturally sourced. It has evolved over time with the winds of fate that have hit the culture.
Fate?
It has, when the culture gets conquered and they are living subject to other cultures, ideas creep in as they start getting into the my God's better than your God description. As their ideas are in supremacy, it's, hey, these guys are saying bad things about our gods, let's eliminate them and get rid of those bad ideas.
Taylor, you're just repeating memes that you learned over the years.
No, I'm not. I'm looking at history and I'm taking a look at things that are happening. There's an absolute 100% secular reason for everything that you're claiming.
Okay,
And
tell me, how do you explain your existence from a secular perspective? Don't tell me I don't know.
It's a false test, and you already acknowledged that it's a false test.
You are groveling.
I'm not groveling at all, man. Just think about it. I mean, if you take all gods aside, you've already acknowledged that I could not have a picture of everything to be able to say, hey, take a look here. You know, here's the little fine-tuned bits that are sitting outside our universe that are clicking and rubbing up against each other and creating all these universes and creating the sparks and the energy and the quarks and the things that become consciousness on these different planets. I can't demonstrate that, and you know that, right? So it's not a gotcha type statement like you're trying to make it, because if there's no theistics involved, then we know.
There's no existence.
No, we know that the answers are out there, and we're going to have to continue to look for them. And we also know that on the scale of what we're dealing with, we're not getting the answer in the space of this conversation, much less the space of your and my lifetimes.
No, we're not.
So to sit there and say, hey, you have to be able to refute the idea that there is a God at all, right? That's when we start getting into pink unicorns and, like you said, the magical cheese men on the back of the moon of, I cannot, as a method of logical argument, to demonstrate the non-existence of something, because there might be something else out in the universe.
I never asserted that. You're the one that's asserting non-existence of the reality we have near. There may be some other existence that maybe they have logic in that other way.
What I'm saying is that when you take the claims of men to know gods, and you cannot differentiate between any of the claims of men to know gods. You can't talk to God. You can't say, hey, within your own faith, there's 20 different denominations, and this one is right.
You can check each one of them, Taylor. And that's what we're doing right now. You're checking mine, and you can't answer.
What I'm saying is that you can't check each one of them and come back with something that does not a subjective preference.
Sure you can. I just made an argument, and you haven't argued it, and you're saying it's a subjective preference, even though your answer is, well, I don't know.
No, what I'm saying is that we've got a container problem where the honest answer is I don't know, and you're telling me I have an answer. Do you see the difference?
Yeah, I see the difference that you're struggling. And
well, I know you feel good about that and all.
It's not that I feel good about it, but it's just like, come on, man.
It's intellectually dishonest. It's intellectually dishonest to sit there and say, hey, I can't demonstrate to you. I can't put you on the phone. I can't talk to God. I can't show you angels. I can't show you demons. I can't show you devils. I can't show you where heaven is. All I can show you is a bunch of claims by people over time, right, that when we start taking a look at the historical nature of things are all absolutely consistent with that model that we made of what would a man-made religion be like.
Okay. You know what, Taylor? We're just repeating the same things over and over. I don't think we have any new information. I mean, I'm just going, you're saying the same thing. I'm saying the same thing, and it's probably boring to watch. But
fair enough.
Saying I need to go home and eat, and I got to fix my computer. Can you stay on for a second after we get on? So I can ask you a question.
Yeah.
Unrelated. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I'm gonna close it out. Thanks for this time. And if you want to get together again, that's fine. But we might have some other maybe content we can talk about or something.
That'll be fun.
Okay. Thanks, Taylor, and see y'all later.